You're listening to an Awkward Human podcast on the 5x5 network. If you want to find out more about this show and all the other cool stuff that we do, visit awkwardhuman.com. Hello and welcome to the Awkward Human Survival Guide. This week we're talking about
PDA boundaries,
schoolwork distractions,
lesbian humor,
good BJs.
Woo! Hello and welcome to the episode. I'm Adam Dotches.
I'm Erica Elson. We've got a full house today.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, every week, even when he's a donut, Richard Cardenas joins us.
You know what? I just gotta say fuck you, because I am not 3 donuts.
But you're not this week, but even when you were, you still joined us.
I don't like that.
We're also joined by Kayce, Neill, and Ashley Manta. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is this the time where we ask them to tell us something?
It is the time.
Why don't you guys go ahead and do that?
Who are you?
Well, we know who Ashley is.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she's like changed and grown as a person since the last time she was on the show. So
I mean, maybe just a little.
It's been too long, so refresh everyone's memory in case they don't know you.
Your hair color is different. I'm sure the inside color of your soul has changed.
Right? My aura color
Yeah,
has
exactly.
shifted.
Brightening every day.
So my name is Ashley Manta. I'm a sexuality educator and the creator of Canisexual, which is a word that I made up that refers to anyone who mindfully and deliberately combines sex and cannabis to deepen intimacy and enhance pleasure, whether solo or partnered. And I do coaching, I do workshops, I speak at conferences and retreats, and I love geeking out about sex and cannabis. Yay!
Cool. And Kayce, you're new, so what's your story?
I am. So my name is Kayce Neill, and I am an erotic coach and consultant. And I specialize in helping couples and individuals have the sex, pleasure, desire, and turn-ons that they've always wanted. I use a modality called the Erotic Blueprints by Jaya, which provides a language for communicating effectively your sexual desires, the intimacy you crave, and what really turns you on.
Cool.
Well, I have some questions.
Awesome.
Okay, so is this a type of situation where it's like people who are like maybe kind of kinky and like want to like take their sex life to another level would come and see you and be like, we want to try all these things, but like we're not trying to do it like safely or like whatever? Or is it like more common that people come to you kind of more like a therapist where they're like, we're having problems with our relationship, like we're good like relationship wise but not sex wise, like how can we like bring that back in?
Yes.
The latter?
No,
both.
yeah, it's all of them.
Okay.
So the Erotic Blueprints is essentially the 5 love languages for sex, pleasure, desire, and turn on. And so the way in which I work with people is we discover what their blueprint is. And the 5 are energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, and a shapeshifter. And you typically fall into one of those as your primary. You have a secondary one, and then there's availability to kind of play in all of them.
Wait, how do you shapeshift?
Well, it depends on if that's what you are or not. If you are a shapeshifter, it typically means that you can play in all the other blueprints. You have knowledge of them, sometimes naturally, sometimes it's been something that you're just like always craving something new. And there's a general like idea that people fall into in all 5 of them, and then there's what we call the shadow or the blocks that might get in the way. And oftentimes for the shapeshifter, their blocks are that they either want too much. Their partners are like, you want too much, you need too much, you're just too much. Or they oftentimes don't get their needs met because they can show up for their partner's needs all the time, and they're not entirely sure what their needs are because they can change and they can move, and they can be like, I want all the things all the time. Give me this and that and this and that and this and that and this. Or, you know, they could be like, well, I want to be in energetic right now, and then I want to go into sensual, and then I want to go to kinky, and then want to go back to energetic, and then I want to go play in sexual. And then the next day they can change it all up.
I can see myself being like that.
And we all have elements of all of them, which is the exciting part. And when you were asking about who comes and sees me, it's people who are interested in understanding what is my language and what is my partner's, because what we see is that you're oftentimes with a partner that's not the same blueprint as yours. And so the idea is getting everybody to have the same communication in the same language. So when I say sex and my partner says sex, we both know what that means. Because oftentimes when we hear sex, we hear it through our perception and what we want. So we try to give that to our partner, and our partner's like, that's not it. Yeah. But our sex education in this world is not so great.
No.
To say it nicely. And so part of this gives people like words and language and body sensations to actually start to grow and learn. And there's just lots of ahas, like, I had no idea, or, oh my gosh, you're actually describing me and no one's ever been able to do that before. And you're saying all these things that are exactly what I've been trying to say, and I haven't found the words for it. So that's kind of the work in a nutshell.
I'd like to open up a discussion because in my head, I never know what really is the answer, if there is an answer. But you were talking about, the sex education in the world just being like very terrible, which it is. And but like in my head, I'm always kind of like going back and forth about like how do people think we should approach it, as far as like whose responsibility is it to put it out there, or to like make it available to like, should it be available to like high schoolers, younger, like they start learning as adults, like should it be the school's responsibility, the parents' responsibility, the individual's like, I never know what like that answer is. Do you guys ever think about that?
I want to put a quick little thing in there. The sex education in our schools, not the sex education that's being taught by individual sex educators. Like Ashley is a fucking incredible sex educator and has a wealth of knowledge, and so her sex education is rock star, high quality. And so I just want to preface that when we say sex education, it's mine comes from school, like the school education, and frankly from our parents, and what else is out there is not top notch. But when you get sex educators like Ashley,
right.
I just like for those out there listening, like this is a really important difference in what we're talking about with sex education, because there's different schools.
Yeah, this isn't a Florida public school that Ashley's working at.
Right. So, but I'll let you definitely take that one because it's really your specialty.
I mean, to your question, Richard, I think there are a lot of different approaches to how to get people aware of their bodies and aware of pleasure-based anatomy and things like that. The Our Whole Lives curriculum from the Unitarian Universalist Church, and I use that term broadly, organization, is a really awesome K through 12 age-appropriate sex ed curriculum where you start with like calling body parts by their actual names, not hoo-ha, not birdie, not ding-dong. Like you actually say like penis and vulva and labia and testicles, and like starting to use those vocabulary words as like this. There's nothing shameful about this. You're allowed to talk about it. Like there's a book that's called We Don't Touch Our Vulvas at the Table, which is a really cute book and a useful way to think about like the way that we often shame children for touching their bodies. Like, don't touch that, that's dirty. As opposed to like, it's totally great that you want to do that. That's a thing that you do in your room with the door closed when you're by yourself, because it's a private thing for you. And so like there's so much shame and stigma that parents, that schools, that society puts on sex. And so I think it's sort of everyone's responsibility to start to unpack that and unlearn that. But having a really like evidence-based, age-appropriate curriculum from like kindergarten on, I think would be useful. I think we'd start everybody off on the right foot. But barring that, college. First year of college, you should have a human sexuality class where you learn about consent and that your body is totally yours and you don't owe anyone anything, and this is how pleasure works, and masturbation's awesome, and here's intro to sex toys and all that kind of stuff. Because porn is awesome. I'm a fan. Pay for your porn, everyone. But porn is education. Excuse me. Porn is entertainment, not education.
Right.
You don't watch The Fast and the Furious to learn how to drive.
Right.
You're watching professionals on a closed course, so you really need to like frame it that way, as opposed to using that as some kind of aspirational, like, my sex should look like that, and if it's not, I'm wrong, or my body's wrong, or something's wrong. Like, no.
I wish we could just get to a point where we're at least telling kids at a younger age like that this is part of sex education. And I feel like it shouldn't be a problem with conservatives either, but to tell them like porn isn't real life. Like, even if they're like denouncing porn as an evil, that's not great. But I don't know why we can't all agree on like porn is not real sex. That should be something that should be told initially, although I guess I don't know what that looks like when you hear it from a high school teacher. I don't know what I would have thought in 4th grade if my teacher had been like, by the way, for all of you watching porn in 4th grade, which I don't think I was.
It might have been like Playboy. Or
I don't
like
think I
the
even got there
fuzzy
yet.
block, you know, the TV was fuzzy. Or
Yeah.
something like that. You're like, I think there is a boob in there.
Yeah.
Cinemax.
I have a question because I didn't go to American high school, but if you went to like a fairly liberal, progressive American high school, is consent not taught in high school here?
I wasn't taught it.
I don't remember being
I wasn't
it.
taught it.
Like at all? It's not touched upon? Because
No.
I remember distinctly, like, I'm pretty sure it was 9th grade because we had sex ed in 10th grade, like actual, like a whole like semester on it. But in 9th grade, this like woman who I'm pretty sure was just a sex educator, like freelance, whatever, came in and like did this whole class on like saying no when you want to say no and like men being respectful and whatever. It was really awkward, but like, because it was kind of like, I think she was assuming that a lot of people were having sex. And so for me as a 14-year-old, I was like, well, this is odd. But like the fact that like they actually brought in someone to discuss specifically consent, I think is really good. And it's problematic that like other schools aren't doing that.
I went to a public high school, but in a very rural
I went
area.
to a private Catholic high school.
So that's probably way
awesome.
worse. But we actually had Christian kids from the local university come in and do abstinence only education.
Really?
Like,
Wow.
you're worth waiting for. And like the whole... Have you seen the tape exercise that they do in front of high school kids where they take a piece of tape and stick it to your arm, and then like the more times you stick a piece of tape to another person, the less sticky it gets, and thus your value plummets the more partners that you have is
geez.
the underlying message of
awful.
that, right? Like, it's horrific.
Oh god.
Get a new piece of tape. Jesus.
Awful.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Nope, don't like it.
No, I don't
Hard
remember
no.
having that.
Yeah,
in
most
mine
of our
either.
sex ed class was about all the STDs and like knowing when to spot
lot of
them.
Yeah, we talked about those in the baby. Like we got to watch the
Yeah,
baby come
it's
out.
death and
I was like,
babies.
that was pretty much
But
it.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like even in Catholic high school, it was never like you shouldn't be having sex right now. It was like if you are having sex, here's what you should be doing.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
That's, yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm like, yeah.
Was it
I'm
a
more- I'm more
Jesuit
sad.
Catholic school?
What?
Was
Well,
it a Jesuit
It
school?
was I mean it's in Quebec, which is a very liberal part of North America, and it was not like nuns. It was regular teachers. So I guess it was like the equivalent to like Reform Catholicism,
Right.
you know? It was like men and women teaching other men and women. It wasn't like a private girls' school type thing.
Okay.
But yeah, we did wear uniforms.
Yeah, no.
I don't even think I was I don't think I went through like a proper sex education course in my high school. Like the most I remember is that we discussed it in biology, and that was it. Like we didn't have anyone come in and like teach us about condoms or anything like that.
No. Yeah, my science teacher was one that was lucky enough to teach us too.
Yeah. Oh, fun.
My science teacher molested people.
So not
So
the
that
best.
didn't work
analogy.
out so well. Yeah.
person to have.
It's a spectrum.
Sure.
You get a little bit of everybody. We have some awkward stories to share today. I don't know what did we settle on?
Oh, the awkwardness that I created at the Emancipator concert
Oh, right.
last week. So my boyfriend and I have been practicing Tantra and energetic sex, which is the idea that if you have like sexual energy in your body, that you can actually direct that sexual energy outside of your body and form it into waves or genital like formations, but essentially that you can, with all of your clothes on, without penetrating physically, that you can have a sexual encounter with a partner.
Like a psychic orgasm.
Basically.
Okay.
And so we had done that many times in private, but we had never actually experimented with it publicly. And last week, I had gotten us tickets to see Emancipator down in San Diego, and we got really high beforehand and walked across the street because we got our hotel across the street from the venue, and the music was swelling and the beat was good and the lights were just spectacular, and he was standing behind me, and like I could feel our bodies like writhing in sync to the music, and like the sexual energy was building, and I was having like orgasmic sensations flowing through my body. And the person in front of us, like, we weren't touching her at all. Like, we kind of stayed in our little bubble, but like every once in a while she'd kind of like look over her shoulder like, what are these assholes doing? But then we had another couple next to us that we kept brushing arms with, and like we'd kind of catch each other's glances every now and again and be like, I see you.
Somebody likes it.
So that was a different experience. I had never had energetic sex in public before.
Was that exciting?
It was really hot. I kept going back and forth between, wow, this is unbelievable. Holy shit, this feels so good. And like, how is it that not every single person here knows what we're doing? Because it must be all over my face because I'm in rapture right now.
Oh, wow. They probably thought that you were like on some drug or something.
Probably. Sex and weed, guys. I just gotta tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose if like other people were on ecstasy or something, maybe they're just like, oh, all right, well, this is how it goes.
Just assume.
Yeah. Kayce, did you have anything you wanted to share, or did you? I can't remember if we.
Not at the moment, but I will definitely let you know if it kind of pops up.
Cool. All right. Well, then I wanted to talk about one thing before we move on to questions today, which also in regards to questions, hi, everybody who wrote in over like the last 3 weeks that I missed. I'm very sorry about that. When we swapped systems over, some stuff got lost. We're answering your questions today. If we don't get to all of them, we will be answering them next week. But I apologize for that. I hope it hasn't been too long. We are definitely getting them to
Probably
them.
ruined their lives.
Yeah, probably. But not as much as we're going to after we give them advice, of course. So anyway, the thing that I wanted to mention or wanted to talk about is we had some people over last night, and one of them, and I think we'll just keep it anonymous just in case his friend, or he wouldn't want his friend to be known in the situation. But it brought up an interesting etiquette question for me. I thought that it would be interesting to discuss. So basically, friend that came over has a roommate who is, I guess, has like an anal fissure or something that causes him to bleed out of his asshole pretty regularly. But rather than cleaning up after himself, he just leaves it on the toilet.
Like on the seat or in the bowl?
In the bowl. Like
Okay.
on the sides and
Okay.
stuff.
Okay, yeah, I think you probably heard more than I did, Richard. So it's just like he's not flushing.
Well, I mean, he's
or what-
flushing,
he's
but
like-
it's like if you leave a poop streak in the toilet.
Oh, right,
You,
yeah.
you know, make
Yeah.
sure it's not there.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's that situation.
Yeah,
But
and
with
so
blood.
once or twice, if that happens by mistake, sometimes it's like everybody forgets that they left something on there. Sometimes you get a phone call and you're rushing out of there or whatever. I don't know. It's reasonable, but like when it's every time and it's just you're constantly walking into the bathroom and you're like, oh, so and so didn't wipe up their ass blood today, then I think you have a right as a roommate to say, hey, could you please wipe up your ass blood, since it's yours, and I get that this is a hard situation for you, that you have to deal with this, but also it's your ass blood. I'm not gonna clean up your ass blood. If you need help for some reason, let me know. Maybe like if you want to be super polite, you can offer to be helpful.
No, don't offer.
No, I wouldn't offer.
But yeah, but I think it's pretty reasonable. I think it's like most people would say, yeah, that's his problem. You can feel bad for him, but it's still his problem. Meanwhile, this guy is like, responding to the polite request for ass blood cleanup as, I guess, being passive aggressive, and like feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have to deal with this. It's not my fault I'm bleeding out of my asshole. So everybody should just have to be like, oh, it's just ass blood again. I'm curious what everybody thinks about that.
As a woman who bleeds out of my vagina every month, I don't think you have the right to say, oh, it's not my fault I'm bleeding out of my asshole. I'll just leave it everywhere. I mean, It's your body. It might not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. Like, would it be okay if a woman just left her bloody tampon lying around, not in the trash? No.
No, but
So, like, why does this guy have the right to just be like, oh, well, I have an anal fissure, so I'm just going to bleed everywhere?
yeah, I don't think he does. I'm just trying to figure out I'm trying to figure out
Do you
what
think
is
he
the
doesn't
correct
know?
etiquette.
No,
Like-
he knows. It's been brought to his attention.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he already spoke to the roommate, and the roommate is saying that this is the way you're asking me to clean this up is passive aggressive.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. This sounds like a problematic personality.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like maybe get another roommate is the answer to that, but it's
But
like if you
that's so
can't.
unsanitary too.
Yeah, it is. It's.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I don't.
And it doesn't sound like it's hurt. It sounds like he just needs to flush the toilet twice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be even more passive aggressive and put a note on, like a reminder note before he walks out of the bathroom, like, "Hey, did you flush again?"
Does the toilet look red?
You know, I mean, we've
Grab
got
a
those
brush.
signs in the women's bathroom that are like, "Don't flush anything but toilet paper down
Right.
the thing." You could put one of those up.
Yeah.
Okay, friendly reminder.
No blood in the toilet.
Yeah.
Or if you're really that lazy that you can't clean up after your own blood, like buy a bidet and like
What if that makes the blood gush? Like, what
oh
if he puts
God,
the
if
water
it,
in
like
and it just
sprays
like
everywhere
It's
and
not
all of a
like-
sudden
yeah,
it's like
it's
a
pretty
shower
gentle.
scene from Carrie.
But if his asshole is that fragile, like, what if it just opens it up more?
Well, it depends on where the bleeding's coming from, but generally speaking, that's not going to, really cause much of a problem.
I think there's gentle bidets that you can buy out there.
Yeah.
There's like small ones.
I have one. I've been too lazy to hook up. It's, you got to take the thing, unscrew the toilet stuff, and I'm like, I don't know.
I just don't think
I got a
this
spray
guy's going to
bottle.
use a bidet if he can't get rid of the blood in the
That's
toilet.
fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. I wonder if it's something where it's more along the lines of I have this problem and I forget about it regularly. It's like he doesn't necessarily mean to leave the blood, but he just can't remember.
But
Well,
that's
he
when
could
you
just-
say, okay,
I mean, he still
I'll
needs
do
to, but
a better job of checking.
Yeah, you make
Yeah.
yourself look at the toilet every time you go to the bathroom.
maybe
I
we
feel like
just do,
everyone
an
does that
angled
anyway.
mirror.
Like you kind of do a little quick
Yeah,
inspect.
well, even to
like-
make
Yeah.
sure the paper flushed down.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to leave a mess, so I think about that and I
Sure.
check. Sometimes I forget, but I also have a bathroom in my room, so it's not really like if it was in the hallway and other people are using it all the time, I might feel a little bit differently about that and might want to like clean up. I'd be more paranoid about cleaning up. I think if I knew that there was a chance someone would walk in on it, but although there's a chance Richard might walk in on it sometimes, but usually I'm pretty good at flushing. It's just sometimes during the day, but I usually catch those before you even get home.
Okay.
I usually, if I don't flush, it's because it's like the middle of the night and I don't want to wake somebody up.
Yeah, that happens.
You
That I
know,
do.
like that's the only time that I'm super, like I'm conscious about not flushing, but
Usually
if
that's
I
gonna be
poop,
pee
that's
most
a
of the time.
guarantee. Like,
Yeah,
sorry if
yeah,
you're sleeping,
yeah.
too bad. Like,
not
you'll
gonna sit there all
appreciate
night.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just go downstairs at this point because I like I don't know. The bathroom's just too close. I'll go downstairs or I'll
Well,
go
the one in
into
the
your
room is too close.
Yeah.
If there's someone sleeping right there, right next to the door where you're pooping, like I wouldn't be able to do it either. I'd have to go into the next bathroom.
I don't really poop in the middle of the night, I don't think.
Well,
I
either.
don't-
Just
I don't
as
do
an
it either.
example,
Yeah.
Mhm.
if I were to.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to poop in the middle of the night. I think most of us would just rather not do it, but I'm sure. I mean, I guess I have before.
But you don't like wake up having to poop.
Oh, you know what I
Like
did
you don't
two-
like
no,
wake
I
up in
did
the
2
middle of the
nights
night like
ago.
I gotta poop. Oh, you do?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't wake up like that. It's possible that it's happened before, but I didn't. I remember 2 nights ago I forgot to go in the morning, and I remember I did get up and go to the bathroom, and I was like, oh, this hasn't happened before since we moved in.
No.
Well, we haven't solved this guy's problem.
What? Yeah, I mean, we don't
I would
necessarily
just,
need to.
I
I'm just curious what
personally,
you would
if it
say.
were me, would leave a note like across from the toilet where you can see it when you sit down that just says, "Flush twice" or something like. Make sure it's clean.
Brush up.
Like I would just do that, and if the roommate gets pissed about it, oh well.
I mean, he's already calling him out for being passive aggressive, which I don't think it is. So why not actually do something really passive
Right.
aggressive?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it could be. Yeah, what is he going to label that then? Like super passive aggressive?
aggressive.
Yeah.
Aggressive, yeah.
Which I think is what when you're saying something's passive aggressive, you're just like, just be aggressive.
Yeah.
Or be passive, I guess.
Or be
maybe.
assertive. Just ask
Yeah.
for what you want and don't be
Yes.
defensive when it's your blood that's still left around. Like, clean
Yeah.
that shit up.
Yeah.
Especially that he
gross.
acknowledges that it's his too. It's weird that he gets upset about it, but
Right.
I don't know.
Sounds like it sounds like there may be something else wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not just that.
probably. All right, let's get to the real questions though. I was like, that was just too good to pass up talking about. Actually, we kind of have one not real question first, which will make sense once I read it. We talked about this on Supercharged already, but I wanted to bring it up on Awkward because it was, well, Richard, you'll maybe understand why. It's actually about a chat bot. Rob wrote in to ask that what we thought about this. I'm just going to summarize it so we can do it quicker. He sent screenshots of a screenplay written by a chatbot, basically, and I think it was. What was it? It was. I don't remember what the series was. Maybe it was Star Wars. Maybe it wasn't. But Richard, you sent me one of these recently, right? Was yours Star Wars?
I don't remember what it was, but yeah, I sent you one.
Yeah. So I'm curious. He sent it in, and I haven't heard back yet. So I don't know if he knew it was fake when he sent it in, but there have been a lot of these machine learning things where they're writing these like really weird, awkward scripts based on people will make jokes where it's like all this script stuff got funneled into a machine and then it wrote a new script and then the script is just really ridiculous. It was Transformers. That's the one that Rob sent in. I remember it now because a Toyota Camry and it transforms into a 2 year later Toyota Camry. And it's like, that's a human joke. That is very clearly a human joke. Like a machine would most likely not come up with that the way these algorithms work. And so this stuff has been like going around on the internet a lot, and it's been and I'm just curious, like Richard, you knew it was a fake, right? The one you sent me.
Yeah, the way the jokes were laid out and everything just made perfect sense within the world that the script built. The dialogue just made perfect sense. Like, it just didn't sound like a machine to me.
Yeah, there's got, like, if you've actually seen the machines do it.
It was really funny, but.
Yeah, it's still funny.
Too perfect?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, it's just the machines aren't that good yet. So, it's, I'm just curious, like, aside from Richard and I, who's seen this, like, have you ever seen those tweets? Have they, or I guess on Facebook or wherever people post this shit? I'm not really sure. No one's experienced.
The thing I haven't
don't really
experienced
do
it
tweets.
personally, but the thing that I remember hearing about are all the chatbots that were on Ashley Madison,
Oh,
that website where I can't remember all of it, but essentially, what was it? Wasn't it like 60% of the women that were on Ashley Madison were actually chatbots?
I believe that.
how did that work out though? How do you have an affair with a chatbot?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it ever like.
You would be surprised at the caliber of humans that surf those kind of sites. It's real easy to have a relationship with a chatbot at that.
Especially when somebody is telling you everything you're wanting to hear.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
But what is the purpose though? Like, do they get money out of it somehow?
Emotional. Oh, the chatbot.
Yeah,
well,
what does the
the
chatbot
guys paid for like membership. I believe is how it works.
So Ashley Madison would like put those on there to make sure people are getting interactions.
I think so.
That
It was a couple. It was what,
interesting.
2 years
And it
ago,
fooled
3 years
people.
ago. So I can't really remember, but
Probably
I do.
before their big data dump.
And it was it was during their big data dump that all of that came out,
Right.
where they were like, yeah, actually, there's not really a lot of human women on here. It's mainly chatbots.
That is so funny.
And they
But,
figure
like,
out the
not
algorithm.
surprising either.
That's actually why Rob sent it in. Wasn't sure what show it would be best for. It was definitely best for Supercharged, but but there is an element of awkwardness to it in that. I don't know if it's the same one. We're thinking of the same one, but I think it's awkward in that like people are getting fooled by chatbots these days, and it's probably because I work with this stuff as much as I do that it's really it stands out to me as not real. But it's I don't understand how people make that mistake over a prolonged amount of text. Like a couple of interactions, sure, they're not passing the Turing test. By any, well, you can't, with a few interactions, they're not passing the Turing test, period. But it's easy to fool people with a couple of things. But once you get into a conversation, it's not. It seems pretty clear.
My bot was talking about Saw. It was a script for Saw, the series. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really funny. That's it.
Has anyone here been fooled by a chatbot?
Probably.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't
Not
think
that I'm
so.
aware of. Though I was on a
suppose that's the
webinar.
problem.
I was watching a webinar, and they had a chat box on the side where people were asking questions, and I had some questions that came up during the webinar. And this is before I knew the new technology that was out there, where you would record one webinar and then you'd replay it with all of the questions that had happened previously, or they would have people come in and write questions just for it. And so I just kept noticing it shows up that your question is in the chat box, but your question never gets answered because it's been something that's recorded already. And I just remember
That's really weird.
I got angrier and angrier at the end. I'm like, why are you not writing back to me? Like, I have a really good question here. And then like the guy above me question would get answered, and then the guy below me, the question would get answered. And I'm like,
That's terrible.
damn it. I'm like, this is fake. You're never going to answer my question. I was so angry after that.
They really shouldn't do that. I mean, it's fine if it's pre-recorded, but don't trick people to think that they have a chance to interact with something. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really infuriating.
Yeah.
I've wondered before if the people on Amazon chat are actually bots.
That was what I was gonna bring up next. Actually, yeah.
Well, you do talk to them frequently.
I sure do. And they always sound like if you say a certain thing, they'll respond a certain way, you know? Like they don't sound like a person.
Yeah, and they could be copying and pasting answers, but if you go through the documentation for Amazon Lex, which is what runs their chatbot system, you can see how their support system fits right into that. And it's also the sort of thing that can be taken over by a human at any point. So if I had to make a bet, I would say we are talking to a chatbot when we talk to Amazon most of the time. And then when something gets complicated, then the chatbot's like, hey, I need a person. I think that's why they're not doing email anymore. Not that their email couldn't be automated. I think that's one of the reasons. Because the chatbot can automate all that stuff a little bit more easily because it's harder to digest a big piece of text, but also because there are a lot of ways to game the email system, and I miss it because I loved gaming the email system.
Easy to game
for
the chat
efficiency
system.
purposes. Yeah, but then you have to like sit there and wait.
Yeah.
Because with the email, I'm like, this didn't happen. Here's a list of things that you could do about it in the order of preference. Please pick one and then write back with what you did. That's what I send them most of the time because I know what their support system options are. I'm not trying to take advantage. I'm just trying to like make it go by faster.
Speed up the process.
Yeah, not have to deal with it. But anyway, that's enough tech talk. I think we can move on to the actual questions. No, not to say your question wasn't fun, Rob, but I think it was more fun for me than anybody.
Our next question is from Jess. 16-year-old straight female. Boyfriend is a 16-year-old straight male. I don't know what to do with my boyfriend of 5 months. In the beginning of the relationship, he was allergic to PDA and hated when I touched him at all in public or at school, but perfectly fine when it was just us. But now it's the exact opposite. Every time I sit next to him, his hands are on my ass and waist and legs. I can't be near him without getting hugged or groped or something. I didn't mind it at first, but now it's a bit much. He asked me if I would ever consider sending nudes a couple days ago. I told him no, that's the one line I wouldn't cross. I guess my question is, how do I tell him that
You said nudes, right?
Nudes,
like nude
yeah.
pictures. Okay.
I guess my question is, how do I tell him that he's taking the PDA too far and just setting boundaries in general?
Who wants to start with that one?
I work with 18 and over, so this is not my area of expertise.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I always feel weird. I mean, all our questions are from minors today, and I always not the mining for coal, but young people, and I feel uncomfortable with sometimes giving advice because I'm like, if I tell them to do something about their sex lives, where does that fall on the legal spectrum? I mean.
Well, the nude thing is fairly easy to answer.
Don't
Just
do
don't
that.
send nudes.
Yeah, and big congratulations for setting boundaries and saying no to that.
Yes.
That falls under, for both parties, that could fall under, what is it? Distribution of child pornography.
Oh,
Yeah, you
for
become
both.
a child
For both.
pornographer.
Both
And when you
parties.
become an adult, if you want to send nudes, you should still avoid having your face in them so that if it ever pops up online, you can be like, nope, that's not me.
Or at least, I mean, you should do whatever it is that you want to do, I think. But yeah, if you're worried about it going online, that is something to consider. It's a weird debate because whenever pictures get leaked, everyone always blames the person who took the picture, like, oh, you should have known better. When it's like, okay, well, so if someone robs you, you should have known better.
Yeah, the victim blaming is for real. On that stuff.
It's it's weird. I mean, because my dad's office got robbed recently because someone else left the door open, and then they blame my dad for not having enough security. And it's like, well, it's neither of your fault. Someone robbed it, but if you had to pick, you're the one who left the door unlocked. So it's kind of like, well, I think the whole thing's silly. It's like you shouldn't. There's so much crime now that and so many people doing bad things to each other, which sucks. But we seem to have come to a place where we just are like, oh, well, you should know better because bad people are bad.
Everyone wants it to be preventative. It's not about just like being a good person anymore and just not committing the crimes. Now the person who is the victim of the crime is at fault because they didn't prevent it.
Yeah, I mean, like I got a lot of people telling me when I got hacked, it's not my fault. And I'm like, well, no shit. But thank you. But it's one of those things where I mean, like I took every precaution I could possibly think of, but there are holes in all systems, and if you are not constantly vigilant and paying attention every second, which is impossible, then people will get through, and like shit happens, unfortunately. So I wish we could get away from that, but yes, I would like to echo for just good job on not like doing something that's uncomfortable for you, and especially something that would label you as a child pornographer if those were ever to get out, which is a little messed up in the sense that you're a minor, and it probably shouldn't work exactly that way, but that is the law.
I think with the kind of like the political climate we're in right now, seeing all these teenagers rising up and yelling at adults for being complacent.
And good for them.
Yeah, I think that it's a fine example of the fact that our teenagers aren't as dumb as we like to perceive them to be.
Well, and I don't think any of us here do, though.
I mean, the general we.
I just want the teenagers to know we don't think you're stupid,
We don't.
and we're impressed by you, and so on.
So I don't think that it's too much to tell this young woman to just have that conversation. Like the only way to do it is to do it. You have to tell your boyfriend, like, hey, I've noticed that you've been a lot more affectionate with me, and here are the things that are making me uncomfortable about it. And you guys can, hopefully he's mature enough to be able to have that conversation to discuss, like, what is it about this thing that is making you uncomfortable? What can I do to make you comfortable? Like, what do you need me to like pull back on and stuff? Like maybe groping your ass in the quad is not appropriate, and you let him know that. If he can't respect that, then you don't be with him.
Yeah. And if you like him groping your ass in other situations, like definitely put that out there, because I think it's one of those things where you have you're with somebody and you're attracted to them, and like it would be hot in one situation but not in another. I mean, like, Ashley, you had energy sex in public, but there may, like at that concert, it made sense. Under the circumstances, it made sense. But in another situation, I mean, I don't know exactly where you would be on that.
Dentist.
Or like Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
In the middle of Thanksgiving dinner would be
We all have places where we don't want our ass grabbed.
right.
Or beyond.
It's context. It's all
Yes.
about context, and context
I love that
is
word.
important for all areas of sexuality, but especially when it comes to touch and boundaries. Like, if I really like being slapped during sex, that's a very different story than being slapped in the middle of the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I need to have that container. And so, Jess, if you're listening, really letting your boyfriend know that this kind of touch is okay for me in these scenarios, but I really need you to check in with me before you start like taking liberties with my body that I haven't consented to.
Yeah, and this reminds me of someone from last week that wrote in. Actually, Jess wrote in before this, and we didn't know, but the consent ring guy, if you remember, he had
Right.
that. It was like they were in a BDSM relationship, but he'd have a ring he'd put on to say like I'm up for it, which I thought was really like a nice way, because they talked to like figure out what they wanted, but when it came to they just wanted to go into it and not have a conversation first.
Every time, yeah.
Yeah, so he put the ring on to say I'm down.
Sure.
And she had was it a charm bracelet or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had their thing. So there's no reason that can't apply to PDA. You can say like if you want to like help train this guy to be a little bit more cool with your comfort zones, then maybe you have some way of indicating to him visually, so it doesn't have to be a discussion each time, and he doesn't feel like you're you're nagging, because it seems like a lot of guys like to go to that.
I think that's a good idea if the situation varies. Like, I think that if one of them is always going to want to do the public PDA, but the other one is like, sometimes I'm uncomfortable, sometimes I'm not. I don't know. It depends on how I feel. I feel like that's a good situation. But if she just doesn't want that ever, I don't think they resort to that. I think they just resort to like, this is not going to happen.
Yeah, you can set
ever
some rules
in this situation.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you can find out something too, that like, what is it that they're actually needing at that time. So if they're wanting touch and you're a no to it in a PDA situation, find out what else is possible. So
yeah, there
like,
might
I'm
be
a no
some...
to this, but what can we find a yes to that I'm a yes to and you're a yes to? And so that can be another,
I feel like
way.
there's, I totally agree with that. But I feel like there's probably a little bit of a line blur that happened because she said that he really hated it. And she was the one who used to do the PDA. Like, she mentioned that she would touch him in public or at school. And so he may be thinking that this is actually what she wants right now. He's like, it's been 5 months. He's probably a lot more comfortable with it. He might be in love with her and like wants to be all over her all the time. And he's like, cool, I'm down now. And she hasn't like readjusted the circumstance to be like, oh, I was cool with like holding your hand at school, but I'm not cool with you doing the ass groping. And he might be like, oh, didn't know, thought you wanted all of this because I wasn't comfortable with it. Now I am.
I mean, relationship success comes down to communication. Open and honest communication where you're not blaming somebody, you're not shaming somebody, you're not pointing to somebody, and you're really, having an open conversation about wants, needs, desires, boundaries, that kind of stuff. And it's a forever conversation. It's not a conversation you have once and never go back to. It's a conversation that builds upon each other.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you're this young and you're able to kind of have this conversation early on, and you can kind of carry that throughout your life and any other relationships that you're going to have. And it doesn't always have to be like a romantic or sexual relationship. It's kind of any relationship.
Yeah, I think the thing that I notice with the younger people who write in a lot of the time is that the questions are, you just haven't, everyone, I'm always impressed by how smart a lot of the people are who write in at such a young age. And I don't know if I was that smart. I don't think so. But there's everybody, I think everybody just, it's like, you can be as smart as you can be at any age, but you still, there's that experience component of just realizing that you have to get over the awkwardness a lot of the times and just talk about it. Awkward is a mindset. It's not an actual like definitive thing. Anything can not be awkward if you get used to it and you make yourself comfortable with it. But you get there by jumping into the uncertain and the unknown, and like, getting used to feeling you're realizing that the world didn't end. You didn't get exiled. You're not, it's not one of those nightmare scenarios where your underwear falls down at assembly or whatever, that people get throughout their lives as situations change for them. It becomes college, it becomes work, it becomes assisted living. I don't know. So
yeah, I don't think we give the kids today, quote unquote kids today, like enough credit. Like they're fucking brilliant, and they have access in ways that we just never had, and their life experiences, I think, are just growing even bigger and bigger because they're forced to have so many other experiences that we didn't have. I mean, we dealt with Columbine, but I didn't have like school shooting drills and stuff like this. And the kids
really
are
bizarre.
having it now, and there is an effect that we know that's coming from that, and that's having so many of these kids grow up even faster. And then social media and the bullying in a totally different capacity. And so they're brilliant and they're moving so fast, and I hear people talk down to them, and I'm like, you seriously have no clue then what you're talking about, because these kids are watching. I saw a meme that I loved, and they were like, these kids have grown up on the Hunger Games. They've grown up, in all of these like situations where you're watching these young kids actually like destroy the evil empire. And I'm like, good job, kids. We taught you to do this. Way to do it.
Now they're
like,
doing
good
it.
job. The world will be saved by our kids.
I
Thank
hate
you guys.
I hate the whole millennial down talk that we have to deal with all the time. But I am not that is unfortunately going to be sealed for a while. It's not until the next generation pops into whatever they get called. But I hate the word millennials, but and I hate being one, but I barely. I was so I'm like a year or two away from not being a millennial if I was just a little older. But it's because of every generation shits on the next generation. It just is how it's always been. And I want our generation to be better, and I don't want people. I think we just need to recognize that some people suck sometimes, and for a long period of time. I don't think anyone's really good or bad, but there are problems. There are problem people and not problem people at various instances, and so you can always point to a group in every generation, like, oh, they're lazy, they're entitled or whatever, but they're also brilliant and amazing and incredible and smart and thoughtful and everything else. So I hope our generation focuses on that more instead of being like the one that preceded us and decided to just trash us at every opportunity. Anyway, that was let's move on to our next question from Ori, who writes, this one will go quickly. This one's for me. Was listening to the back catalog of for the umpteenth time and was curious to know whether Adam's Bubby has told the secret of his last name yet. Thanks.
What?
So I didn't realize I brought this up this much. So I don't know where we came from, that my dad's side of the family. I don't know where we're from. I'm assuming this is what this relates to, because only my uncle, my oldest uncle, the one that does hand-me-downs at Thanksgiving, Richard. Yes. That's more for the audience, but
yes. He takes us into his closet and he starts giving clothes away. Yeah. He's got a ton of money. And he gives away clothes he's never worn.
Well, not always. I mean, the one that I got, I know it's always almost too big for me because he's quite tall. So he's not like a large guy, but he's much taller than me. And so it's never small enough, but he shrunk a cashmere sweater and couldn't even wear it anymore. And it was like, oh, I really like this color. So I put it on and like, wow, this fits me. It's like child size. It's perfect. That was like, I'm not buying that, but if it's free and no one else can fit into it, that's what I'm here for.
So the secret is still not out.
Yeah, it's not out because he's the only one who knows, and he's not allowed to say until Bubby's dead.
What? Why isn't he allowed to?
I don't know. I don't want to say anything that would upset her, but I think it has to do with her father, who she has an issue with, which I'm like 99% sure I know what it is. Her father's dead, but she had a traumatic family experience, and she doesn't want to talk about that, and how he came to the United States and where we come from relates a lot to those things. Mm-hmm. So I know like 3/4 of where my family's from, but we don't know where her family comes from other than Europe.
Has no one on your family been on Birthright?
No, my sister has.
Did she not do the genealogy thing with the last name?
I don't remember her ever mentioning that. But
because that would have been a way to find out.
Yeah, I mean,
I found stuff out about my last name that I had no idea. That was completely contrary to what my family had said.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about more specifically what was the generation prior to Bubby.
Right, but it could have explained what part of Europe he came from, where he came through, what the history of the name was.
Oh, you know what? She wouldn't have probably explored that because her last name isn't Bubby's maiden name.
Oh,
so that probably never came up. Yeah, because we have a lot of people in France with our last name, and other parts of Europe, and those I've been meeting people through 23andMe, finding out that you're a relative. I should say they find me. I never even think to look, but maybe I should go dig and we'll see what's
maybe
I should be able to rule out based on everything else I know. Yeah, Ori, I'll let you know as soon as she's dead.
You guys don't have access to her birth certificate?
We might, but I think it's more of she was born in Chicago, so, and it's hard. I don't know if we're ever gonna we need to get back there. So as long as she and her first son don't die at the same time, we will find out eventually.
And that's like a pact they made that as soon as she dies, he's allowed to tell the family?
Apparently.
Wow. Okay.
I hope he wrote it down just in case there's a horrible accident.
I feel like this would be a great mystery novel.
But, I'd rather
Netflix series.
Oh, yeah. Hey, if Netflix wants to do it, I'm game.
They'll take anything.
But I just want I'd much rather they're alive than we solve the mystery, just in case that didn't come across from some of my earlier comments. But yes, when I know, I will let everyone know in whatever capacity is. I'll share it without it, excluding the details that are personal or something if anything comes up that I'm not expecting. But I think she's overreacting most likely at this point. But anyway,
Our next question comes from Avogadro Catalyst.
What?
Avogadro Catalyst.
No, it does say that.
Aloha, awkward people. I am a 17-year-old male from the UK, and I am in need of some advice. I have my A-level exams upcoming in late spring, and I am behind on my work and below the grades that I need for university. I enjoy 2 of my 3 topics and want to achieve. It's just that when I am working, I always get distracted by Spotify, Netflix, gaming, etc. How can I improve my self-discipline in order to focus on my work? What do you guys do to focus on your work? Thanks, Avogadro Catalyst.
I mean, obviously, just Adderall, just lots and lots of Adderall. Just swallow a whole bottle.
We are not medical professionals.
Yeah.
There's a disclaimer. Do not, do
Aloha,
not take
everyone.
medical advice from this podcast.
Yes, that is a joke. What do you do to concentrate on your work? I mean, my thing always is just promise yourself you're going to do it for 5 minutes and then stop if you don't want to do it anymore. That's, I think the hardest part is usually getting started, and it seems we get in these mindsets where we feel like we have to do this thing, but I'm too tired, I am not going to be good at it, is this too hard, I don't know what to do, there are too many steps. You can think of all the reasons why you can't accomplish something, and it's really easy to do that, and you're really good at doing that, so you can instead not do that. Just say, if that starts coming up, saying I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to work for 5 minutes, and then I'll do that afterwards if that 5 minutes just sucks and I can't get anywhere. But if you get in the habit of starting, and because anyone can do anything for 5 minutes, it's not going to kill you. Unless it's, murdering yourself, in which case that would kill you. But in general, like what you're doing every day is not going to be a problem. I just think that makes it a lot easier. I mean, there are a lot of tricks, I think, to get started, and you kind of have to figure out the ones that work for you. There are a lot of tricks done to concentrating on your work, but if you have built-in breaks, you can try a Pomodoro timer, which is basically like you work 15 minutes, you take a break for 5 minutes, work 15, take another 5-minute break. You can set intervals the way you want. It's like interval training with running, but with your schoolwork or job. There are a lot of ways to go about it. Those are a couple that come to mind that people really like, but it's really just like finding the simplest piece of what you need to do and only commit to doing that. And then if you do that, then great. And you're good. Hopefully we'll continue on from that point. But I think it's just find a starting point, commit to doing the smallest possible thing. And then if you feel like you can keep going, then keep going. If not, then you have earned your break, and you can try again for another 5 minutes later until you kind of get that jump start going. So as long as you can keep that focus for a short time. But what does everyone else do?
I do 50 minutes and then 10 minutes of anything that I want to do. The studies and research out there shows that we have about the max capacity of 50 minutes to really get good focus in before our body needs some kind of stretch break, water break, pee break, some kind of break like that. And once you get past a certain hump, then at least for me, once I get past a certain hump, then the focus is there. It's just a matter of, like you said, getting it started. And for me, I'm reward based, so I like rewards at the end of things. And so
I think we all are.
Some people are punishment based.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But that's a reward for them.
So it's like which one are you? And so what would be so great for me in that 10 minutes that I can do that feels really pleasurable, that feels really rewarding, something that I can look forward to at the end. And I'm like, cool, here I'm in it. And then once I'm in it, usually I can probably get in about 90 minutes, and then I give myself a longer kind of break and things.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about the reward while you're doing the work?
It's always there, in the back of my head.
If I just keep going, I'm going to have that reward. And I feel like I'd be definitely that way where I'm not even concentrating on the work because I'm thinking about what's coming.
I like a little bit of tease and denial, the anticipation and some of that stuff.
Yeah. I guess another thing that tricks me into doing stuff sometimes is if I can think of like how it's a piece of something really a lot bigger and cooler that I'm clearly not going to contribute to in any real way by doing this task, but I'm like, this will tell me something about this other thing. Like when I was doing this video, I was learning about the human eye because I was doing a educational marketing video for an eye company, and I didn't know anything about eyes. It was completely new stuff to me. I know some medical words and can, get by in medical text or whatever. So it was a little faster to learn. But, like the same thing when you're studying a subject, the components you need to move forward in it, just not the actual information that you're learning. Otherwise, why would you be in school? So for that, like for the human eye, I was able to start making connections to, how this affects, how eyesight and eye issues can affect headaches, which is personal to me. And I ended up actually figuring out some stuff that helped alleviate my migraines a little bit from learning about the human eye. And I also learned a lot about how light works, because that's what the human eye is for. And light is a very interesting topic to me, because that's something that really connects to like pretty much everything in the whole universe. So it's like if you can find a connection to how this boring thing that you don't want to do tells you something a little bit more, or could tell you something a little bit more about something you really like or enjoy, then if you start thinking about it in that context, it kind of shifts your mentality a little bit. But it's really just constructing a narrative in some way, finding some way to construct a narrative for yourself of like why you don't suck at this, why you might not suck at this, why you might enjoy doing it. Try to figure that out too.
I think it could be difficult for people who, like for me, if I think working more towards something I want to work towards, it's easier to do it. I still haven't really figured out how to get started.
Well, if you let me push you.
Yeah, and I so far have refused to let Adam push me into doing stuff. Because for me, like I have a lot of things that I work on, but to actually start working on it, even though the process has already been started and everything, if I take a day off or whatever and then I try to get back into it, I keep telling myself in my head, go do it, go do it, go do it. I never do it though. And I think there comes a point where I finally actually like get up and start doing what I need to do. And then once I'm in it, I can go for a long time. Yeah. The reward for me is usually when that work is done. Like I usually can't take a break in between and go back to it, because then I just won't go back to it. So for me, and that's stuff that I want to do too. Like, and so that's the fucked up part of it too. It's like that's the stuff I want to do. Now having to do something else, like for you're trying to study for exams and everything, that may not be something that you want to do, and so that is a whole different thing. I think that you have your video games, your Netflix, your all that is keeping you distracted from doing the actual work that you need to do. I would probably set up something where you take all the controllers or something, you like put them in a box, have like a timer on them where you can't touch them. Like even if you have to get like a safe or something, put it in there, put it on a timer, you can't get to it. Yeah. So the only other thing you can do is go sit down and study.
That's a really good point too, because if you look at like weight loss studies and stuff like that, people who are trying to change their diet for the better, it ends up being a lot of the time environment is the key factor. Like if you have junk food in the house, you're going to eat the junk food. That's not always true, because we have a candy bar downstairs, and I don't think either of us really abuse that. I very much do not. It's like being around it for me helps build a tolerance to the desire for it. And it's just like when it's overly abundant, I stop caring eventually. And so I like to train myself to be like that, because then I don't desire it when I enter an environment suddenly and I'm like, oh no, all this stuff is overwhelming me, I want it all. I don't feel that way around candy or desserts. I just get cravings sometimes, and it's okay, because I exercise and eat okay most of the time, so I try to keep a balance there. But for most people who are not weird like I am, being in an environment of something that is tempting is dangerous. And so if you can't lock everything up in a box and put a timed lock on it, which is not a bad idea at all, but if that's for whatever reason not feasible or whatever, you can always just go to a coffee shop or go to the library or something and commit to do that. And if you have trouble committing to get off your butt on your own, which I can absolutely relate to, I'm really great at not wanting to get off my butt, even if it's because I'm working. then make a play date with a friend, or a study date with a friend, I guess would make more sense.
Yeah, that's a good thing. A lot of writers do that, where they get in groups so that they are like forced to sit down and write, and they even have each other to talk and bounce ideas back and forth and stuff. So that is a great idea, setting a play date or a study date.
We're all full of great ideas.
So when
you,
I
Erica?
was 17, I had, or probably till I was like 25, I had a lot of problems with procrastination. I would study and everything, and I would do all my work, and I was like an A student. I would just do it really late. And so in high school, I would just, I was pretty good about studying, but I would still do most of it the night before. And so I would just work really, really hard in that week before exams. And then in college, I would like come home from school and I would goof around, whatever. And then I would write my paper at like 2 a.m. And so I got in this habit of always being really tired and never wanting to do the work because I was tired. So I procrastinate until I got like that second burst of energy, and then I would do the work. So for me, it wasn't so much a problem of like, how do I get my grades up or anything like that? It was more like, how do I use that wasted time better? And what I've found as an adult is that I don't really procrastinate anymore. And I was trying to figure out the other day, like, how did that happen? And I think it really has a lot to do with schedule. Like, I would procrastinate so much during college and grad school because I was like, oh, I don't know what to do, or I'm not ready, or it's not good enough. And then I would just work until the last possible second. But the difference when you're like a functioning adult and you have a job is that you don't have the option of staying up until 3 a.m. every day because you will be bad at your job, or you will not wake up for it and you'll get fired. And when you're in your job, you have a lunch break, you have meetings, like you have so many things that structure your day in a way that like if you want to have any free time and fun, like you have to stick to that schedule. And I think that's helped me a lot because every day I make a to-do list, and the to-do list is not things that I have to do before my paper is due or whatever. It's like literally I have to do these things today. So how do I get to 5:30 and have all these things done and eat my lunch and go to the bathroom and go for a walk and then not have to stay late at work because I don't get paid for overtime. And like I will stay if an emergency comes up, but I don't want it to be because of something that I did. Like, oh, I didn't do this thing I was supposed to do. So I think that I've kind of taken that and applied it to my regular life as well, which is like when I go home, I have a certain number of things I need to do as well. But I want to sleep for at least 7 hours, so I just work back from like the point where I go to sleep, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to work until 1 a.m. I need at least an hour of like TV time or whatever that is. And just kind of setting that schedule for yourself of being like, what would make my life better? Is it more sports? Is it more sleep? Is it more friend time or whatever that is? And then being like, really, I only have these 3 hours where I can study. And if I study for this amount of time and I do it in a certain way, I will get all those other things, and just like work backward from the amount of time that you have. Easier said than done, baby, but like a good way to practice for the real world.
Yeah, no, these are all I think good things to try, and it's you'll find out what works for you. But now you have quite a sampling. Is there anything anyone else wants to add before we? I want to try to fit in this last question before we go. Okay, cool. All right, so I guess Avogadro catalyst. I don't. You're gonna have to explain what that one means when you hear this episode, because I thought you wrote something else, and I'm looking at it now, and it's different. Anyway, but good luck. Our last question comes from Diane, who's Oh no, we have 2 more questions. Oh, dude.
Fine.
Okay.
We'll put this one in.
Caitlin, I'm sorry, we'll have to save you for next week. Diane writes, "Hi, I'm Diane." Oh well, I guess I spoiled that one. I'm 15 and a lesbian. I am not out to anybody at my school, though. This is kind of a problem because one of my friends has been making jokes about how I'm a lesbian. This actually happened before, but it was before I knew I was gay. I don't know how to react, since if I actually do want to come out sometime, I don't want to have a date. I don't want to have to date a guy just to prove I'm straight. Yeah, don't do that. But I don't know about coming out yet. They're not homophobic or anything. It's just a joke. I don't really know how to react when this happens. I thought you guys could help. Any advice? I just want to say really quickly, since I was kind of in the situation myself, this is such a great opportunity.
I know, that's what I thought when I heard the question.
Just you have the best opportunity to fuck with them. Like when you're ready to come out, which I think I don't know that your whole situation, so maybe there's a family thing, but if they're not homophobic, I wouldn't worry too much about it. They probably are joking because they know if they like you. They're joking because they have a feeling or whatever. But just in case, this is a great opportunity to fuck with them and just be like, yeah, I am a lesbian. and see how they react. I mean, like at a young
Yeah,
age,
there's
that's
not like
always
there's a
gonna-
lot less to lose if you're literally just responding to a joke, because worst case scenario, you can play it off as like, oh, I was just messing with you until you're ready to come out.
Yeah, so I will let everyone else talk before I go into my spiel. But anybody have? I suppose you're Richard. You're really the only other gay in the room.
Oh, am I?
I'm queer, but I didn't
Yeah.
come out until after
Okay.
high school.
So
Well, and I went through
but-
the same situation with her. I'm not a lesbian, but I was essentially brutally bullied by being called one, and I was like, I'm actually not one. Like, if I was one, like, I would say yes, but I'm not, and it was really hard. And I would say, you know, I do love women. I've been with women before, but don't consider myself a lesbian. And back then, I didn't. That was just not anything on the radar at all. And so, I guess for me is you know, if they're saying it kind of in a joking way, and you know that they're still going to accept you. I mean, there is a part of it where you get to own your own story, and you get to create it in the way that you want to. And there's a lot of power and ownership around your own story. It may not be at the time that you want it, and you would have liked it. However, there is a piece here of how can you empower yourself with this and utilize it in that way, maybe.
This might not be the best metaphor, but I always do my taxes kind of late. And this year I was like, I'm going to do my taxes early. I'm going to get everything together. Even if I don't have an appointment, it's all going to be ready to go, and I'm going to do them, and I'm going to feel so great about it. And so I made an appointment, and I went in, and it was like March 1st, which is not that early, but it's 6 weeks earlier than the deadline. And I went in and I did everything, and it turns out that I owed $400. It's a real bummer. But since then, I've still felt so good about having done my taxes.
Well, but also, it's like if you end up owing, then you don't have to figure out where's that money coming from right now.
Right.
You have
And
time.
I feel like every time before, like, I would have thought, like, because she was like, hey, we can try and write some stuff off, but you might get audited. And, like, now if you get audited, basically they're going to go back for 7 years and blah, blah, blah. And old me would have been like, oh, no, let's write it off. Or let me think about it or whatever. And then I would have probably had to deal with an audit, or I would have procrastinated until it was time. And then I would have been like, fuck, now I need the $400, or like whatever. And so still, despite the fact that this was kind of a negative experience, like the fact that I just did it, and it's not something I have to worry about or overthink or whatever, feels great. And so I'm thinking, like, maybe you'll feel that way about just coming out now. Like, if the opportunity is presented to you, you can just like hand that credit card over and be like, hey, I'm doing it. I'm coming out, and it's not something I'm going to have to wonder how to do or how to tell people anymore. That's going to be something I checked off my list. Maybe that would just be a relief.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, it's really easy, I think, to decide not to come out for a while. It feels safe. You're never going to really feel super ready. I mean, I guess there are probably some people who feel super ready for it at some point. I mean, Richard, you never really struggled with it, did you?
Well, yes. Okay, so I feel like this is a very loaded question. There's a lot that can happen with this. You say your friend's been making jokes or whatever, and you know it's just a joke. However, I think that can really like mess with you because you are a lesbian, or at least that's how you identify right now. My situation was a little bit different, where I just had bullies and they would just, call me gay. And even as a young little kid, I always had that. And so it put shame on me, and it prevented me from ever being able to accept it until I got to a certain age where I could and just be fine with it. I never really officially came out. I just started being who I was. I never had the I'm gay, I'm coming out type of situation. I just decided this is just who I'm gonna be and whatever. But I think with this situation, you have your friend constantly making this joke, and you may kind of laugh it off right now, but I think it can do something to you inside where it will put that shame. It'll make it harder for you to be able to come out. So if they're a really good friend, if you think they're actually not homophobic, I think that, I don't know, if it were me being in your shoes, I would probably just come out to that one person, or, if you feel comfortable enough with this one person to just be like, hey, let's be serious for a second. I think I might actually be a lesbian, and I don't know how you feel about that. Please don't tell anyone or whatever. I want to trust you with this or whatever. I think it always has to start off with at least one person,
Yeah.
and whatever happens after that, like, it's kind of out of your hands. But I just fear for what it can do to you internally with your emotions, with your mental health and everything, to have someone constantly joking with you and you trying to like block that off. Because like I said, you can just keep getting older and like having this kind of shame built in around that because it's being presented as a joke. This isn't real. It's not a serious thing. It's a joke. Ha ha, you're a lesbian.
Well, and we know that in joking, there's always a sliver of truth. And so, you know, maybe if this person really is a friend, as you call them, then have a conversation with them and find out too, maybe where is this joke coming from? Like, why do you joke about this with me? Like, what is this? Why? And you might find, you know, something really powerful there between the two of you guys. And then, you know, there could be the trust of sharing, like, well, this is something that I'm realizing that I am, and I'd appreciate if you don't joke about it anymore. I don't find it funny. It's the way that I'm identifying and I'm trying to figure it out. And the other thing when it comes to stories that I have found is if it doesn't bother you, like if you have no charge around your story, people won't have a charge around it either. So if you're like, yeah, okay, what are we going to have for lunch? You know, if it's no big deal to you, if you can come to a place where you're like, actually, it's not really that big of a deal and it's still my choice. But, you know, you're like, yeah, I am. So what? What are we going to do for lunch? Where are we going to go after school? Like, it's not going to be a big deal for anybody else. Like, there's nothing there. There's no charge around it. And so that might be something to look at, feel into.
Yeah, because it's one of those things, too, where if you're in a situation, I guess, where if you, I'll use a metaphor. If you're throwing something at the wall and it sticks because the wall is sticky or something that's being thrown is sticky, or if you throw it at a waterfall, you're going to get a different effect on it. And so if you're the waterfall and not the wall, then that is, I mean, you can basically say, like, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to respond to these things. People do things because they work. If they don't work anymore, they're going to stop doing them. So if he or she is not getting the rise out of you or whatever it is that they're after by calling you a lesbian, then it's, you know, then they're going to stop calling you that. So you can start with who gives a shit, or, you know, just show them that it doesn't faze you in some specific kind of way that helps solve that problem. And I think I think that's fine temporarily. Eventually you're going to have a reason you want to come out because you meet somebody or because you're just tired of having to not be yourself anymore. I would just kind of figure out, like, is there anything that's barring you from coming out other than you're scared of things changing, which is legit, but that's like the one that you have to get over. Whereas, you know, if your parents are going to maybe kick you out of the house, and that's a legitimate fear and not just an imagined fear, definitely make sure you know which one it is first, because you don't want to like convince yourself it's imagined when it's not either. But if it's safe to come out, and by safe I mean, you know, you're in an environment where people are there to protect you. You have parents who love you and will accept you either way. Like, that's the time to start, I think, talking about it, and get some support, because it's a lot to carry on yourself, and it's a lot, and, you know, you don't get to start your romantic life and your development emotionally in that way until you do come out. You basically reset to 15 when you come out, in terms of your experience in dating and so on. And so when you start that later in life, it will make things harder later. If you can find a way to I sat outside my parents' door for 3 hours at night after they went to bed before I finally pushed myself in there and came out to them. And I had come out to a couple of friends before that as a trial period. So what Richard said definitely echoes in my experience as well. It's hard. It's hard to do it the first time, and then it starts to get annoying that you have to do it over and over again. So I just got up on assembly and told the whole school, because I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not letting rumors go around. I'm getting up there and I'm just doing it. And that was me being lazy, not brave. So it's I have a huge family. I didn't want to come out to them, so I was like, Mom and Dad, you can tell them. I'll tell Mom's side, but you tell Dad's side, because there are like 50 people and I can't do it. And so then I just had to sit through like, oh, that's so brave of you. I'm like, really? Because I didn't do it. You'd think my dad did, but sure, thank you. It was just, my family was very accepting for the most part. I mean, not all of them. Some of them were kind of douches about it, but this is going to happen. So you learn from it. Just make sure you have enough of a support system in place from people you know are going to accept you and be okay. And then when you have that, you have a place to go when things are tough, when you need to be upset, when someone doesn't treat you well, when you need to cry about it, and someone you know you can count on. And that's the real thing. I mean, don't give a shit about what they're saying. Make sure they know you don't give a shit and that their jokes don't matter. And however that works best for you. And then I would work on figuring out what you need to come out, so that when that you know how to get to that place and you can work towards getting to that place. So it's something that you can do and feel as ready as you can for. But I've never met anyone who feels ready. So
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quick, if at school or anywhere near you, if you can go online or anything like that to find any kind of like LGBT groups that they are very accepting and they're very open. If you have something at school and you can go to like the leader or the counselor or whoever like runs it and just entrust in them, whether they're a stranger or not, like that's probably one of the best people you can go to and open up to, because at least now you can get it out and you have someone who will have your back. So that is something that you can probably do.
Yeah, great.
If all else fails, if you're anywhere that's like mildly liberal, just start making jokes about how she's straight. Be like, ugh, did you hear this girl's straight? Like, that's so boring. Like, it's 2018 and she's just like going about her life like so traditionally.
Sure.
I like that.
Turn it around. Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Also, quick plug for sex education for teenagers. There's a website called Scarletine that is an amazing resource, and it's very much LGBT, queer friendly, gender friendly, body friendly, trauma informed. Like all of the important boxes are checked. So if you want to read more about coming out and stories and things like that, I suspect there's probably resources there.
Yeah, it's an incredible resource.
We will definitely get that into the show notes. So if you forget about it, when you're listening to this or watching this, just go to 5by5.tv/awkward/203, and it will be in the links there. Just look for Scarletine, which it's I'm assuming just scarletine.com. I Googled it and that's what it looked like, but I forgot already. So we'll have that in there, as well as some other things that we discussed today. But before we go, Ashley and Kayce, tell me, where can people find you online?
You can find me on my website, cannasexual.com, CANNA sexual. And you can also find me on Instagram at cannasexual, on Twitter at Ashley Manta. And for coaching, if you use coupon code AWKWARDHSG, I will give you 15% off a coaching package with me.
Nice.
We haven't had a discount
18
in a while.
plus
That's exciting.
over, please.
Yeah,
Don't work with kids.
both of our sites are 18 plus. Sorry, guys. And so my website is www.xokayce.com. So www.xokayce.com. And similar to Ashley, I'm offering a redemption code that is XOKC. And you guys, if you're interested in working with me, I'm offering a 90-minute passionate possibilities session for free. It's usually a $250 value. But if you sign up using the redeem code, you'll get it for free.
Nice.
And then I do want to offer, if anyone's interested in taking the test, if you want to take the Blueprint test to find out if you're an energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, or a shapeshifter, you go to bit.ly/XOKAYCE, capital B, capital P, quiz.
All right, we will get all of that in there. I'm writing the notes down as we speak.
Yay.
For those of you who have a question, a story, a comment, anything that you want to share with the podcast at all, you can go to awkward.email. That's just the whole thing, awkward.email instead of .com. You can also, just go there. But those are all the ways.
Rate us on iTunes.
Oh yeah, we haven't had ratings in a while. Go.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Go,
Yeah,
do it.
all you people who've made it through the back catalog already that are new.
Yeah, every time you listen to the back catalog, just go rate the podcast.
Yeah. And check out our shop at awkwardhuman.com/shop, where we have new shirts and things that you guys have requested. And if there's something that you want that is not in there and you have an idea for and you want us to make, we will probably do it. Like literally anything you ask for, we will if it's within our ability and time frame, we'll usually do it. You may remember the music videos and other things that we've done, shirts we made for people, like the Darren is the best shirt, Chibi Darren is the best shirt is in there because that was not an explicit request, but I pretty much just come up with ideas sometimes and go for it. So please let us know if there's anything you want that we can make for you. The person who comes up with the idea will usually send one for free, so you don't have to worry about that. And that is about it. So tune in next week, episode 204. I believe we're talking with Dr. Faith Harper next week about, well, probably a lot of things. She's written a lot of books, so it'll be interesting. And I think we've been talking to her for like a year before we actually got the schedule.
That's the end of the show.
Oh, you just don't love the plugs. You want to go, it's hot. I get it. All right. Bye, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. You have a question, story, comment, or whatever for the Awkward Human Survival Guide? We want to hear it. We read everything we get on the show, censored for your privacy if you wish, and might laugh about your problem because tragedy loves humor, but genuinely want to help you out. If you've got something to share with us, even if you think it's stupid, send it in as anonymously or proudly as you wish. You can do all of that at awkward.email. You just go to http://awkward.email. Oh yeah, and watch the videos on YouTube, youtube.com/awkwardhuman.